What's up guys, Grasshopper here, and welcome back to another video. This is going to be an Overwatch overview video, and it's going to be on the new hero, Moira. I'm going to go over her abilities, stats, her counters, and how you should be playing her. So let's get right into this. Moira is a support hero. She has medium power, 200 health, medium mobility, and according to the Overwatch wiki, she is a 2-star hero, which means she is medium difficulty to use. Moira's weapons are her Biotic Grasp, and this has 2 firing modes. One of the modes is a healing beam, and the other mode is her damage beam, and this is shown on the screen by her left and right hand. Left is healing, and right is the damage. Moira's primary fire is a healing beam that will affect all teammates within the cone up to a max range of 15 meters, and it heals 80 health per second. It's like Mei's primary fire, which is just a spray of healing that goes out up to 15 meters, obviously, and it'll affect all teammates within that cone. The healing beam does have a little bit of a traveling time, so if a teammate is moving, you will have to aim in front of whichever direction they are moving. Also, there is 50 healing applied over time of 3 seconds when you stop spraying an ally, so you can actually stop healing a teammate when their health bar is around 3/4 filled, and the rest of that will be filled up over the next 3 seconds. This is a good idea to do so you don't waste her healing by holding down the trigger or mouse button too long, because she actually has a meter of how much healing she can do, and the only way you can charge that up quickly is by doing damage to enemies. And you don't want to waste healing because the healing beam has ammo on a charge system like Diva's Defense Matrix or Bastion's Self-Repair. So Moira can heal using the healing beam for a maximum of 9 seconds before it has to recharge. It will recharge really slowly, taking a full 45 seconds to recharge, but you can charge it faster by doing damage to the enemies. And the fastest it can recharge, if you do damage constantly after it runs out, you can recharge it in 9 seconds. To do damage, you have to use the secondary fire, which is Moira's damage beam, which is her right hand. It is a soft lock beam, sort of like Symmetra's, so you don't have to aim directly at an enemy to hit them, but you have to be very close to where you are, so you still have to track them really well. So it's kind of like Symmetra's beam, but you want to be aiming at the enemy just like if you were using Zarya's beam. The damage beam does 50 damage per second up to 21 meters away, and it heals Moira for a flat 33 health per second. So the damage beam doesn't just recharge Moira's healing, but it also heals herself. So that's how Moira sustains herself, just like other supports like Zen's got a shield, Mercy heals over time, and Lucio heals himself. Additionally, there isn't any ammo to worry about with the damage beam, so you should always be using it when you don't need to be healing or using any of her abilities. Moira's beams are really effective and unique weapons that can help your team out tremendously. You can damage targets at a pretty far distance, and you can heal multiple allies for 80 health per second. You want to try to get the most out of both of these firing modes so you don't waste Moira's potential. So let's move on to Moira's abilities. They're on your screen now. Moira's ultimate is Coalescence, and this is where Moira fires a long-range beam that both heals teammates and goes through enemy barriers to damage enemies. This ultimate is a beam with a range of 30 meters and lasts 8 seconds. It does 70 damage per second to enemies and 140 healing per second at the same time within the beam. Also, it will heal Moira herself 50 health each second. The damage of this ultimate isn't too strong, but since you can do damage and healing, it's very useful, but you have to use this ult in the right position, which is usually right behind your team, facing towards the enemy team. So like, while your team is at the front taking all the damage, you're behind them healing them and shooting enemies that are on the other side of your team. So you want to keep everything in a line, basically. When you use this ultimate, the rest of your team should rush the enemies so your team can confirm kills and win the fight. Moira's first ability is Fade, and this is where Moira quickly teleports a short distance while immune to all damage. For 0.8 seconds, you disappear from enemies, move 3 times faster than normal, and become invulnerable, but you can't attack or heal. This ability cools down in 6 seconds and is very useful in so many different situations. You can use it for just the movement speed increase to escape or get back to a fight faster. You can use it to flank enemies or move toward an injured teammate without being seen, and you can use it to dodge damage or crowd control abilities. For example, you can avoid a Diva Bomb, a Pulse Bomb, Earth Shatter, Blizzard, Death Blossom, and basically anything else in the game if you time it correctly. This ability makes Moira very mobile and is probably the most important ability to learn how to use perfectly. Again, you don't want to waste it, because if you don't have it on cooldown when you need it, you will probably die. Moira's next ability is Biotic Orb. This is where Moira launches a bouncing orb that she chooses to either do damage to enemies or heal teammates that it gets near. So when the orb gets near its desired target, either an ally or an enemy, it will slow down from 20 meters to walking speed, which is about 5 meters, and constantly do damage or healing until it gets out of its effective range of 5 meters. So the orb has to be near that enemy or teammate to do healing or damage, but but it can affect multiple targets at the same time. A damage orb does 50 damage per second up to a maximum of 200 damage before being depleted, and a healing orb does 75 healing per second up to a maximum of 300 healing before it depletes. These maximum numbers don't change if the orb hits multiple targets, so for example a damage orb could hit 2 enemies for 50 damage per second, but it would only last 2 seconds because that adds up to 200, and then both enemies would lose 100 health. The orbs last 10 seconds or until depleted, and this ability cools down in 10 seconds. Now again, you don't want to waste this ability. One of the problems these orbs have is since they move at 20 meters per second, they move kind of fast. If they don't go by any enemy or teammate, they can have a weird bounce off an angled wall and bounce out of the map and then not affect anyone and be gone for the rest of that 10-second cooldown. So you want to make sure you launch it into an area where it can get the most use out of it, or it'll bounce back into the enemy team or your team. To master this ability, you need to practice launching orbs in directions where they will rebound off walls back to the targets and not fly off into the sunset. This ability works well at healing Moira back up if you can't do damage to an enemy, or you can use this ability to finish off weak enemies. Let's move on to Moira's counters. So Moira is useful against flankers and anyone in an enclosed space, so she counters Genji and sometimes Tracer, Doomfist, Symmetra, and Sombra. Also, any hero that is low on health, Moira can almost immediately kill if she's got a damage orb to throw at them, or if they have no shields to protect her damage beam. Moira is weak against range enemies and tanks, so she's countered by Pharah, Widowmaker, Roadhog, Diva, Orisa, Winston, and sometimes Reinhardt and Ana. Mostly the reason the tanks counter her is because their shields will block her damage beam from hitting enemies hiding behind the shields, and if you can't do damage with your damage beam, you can't charge back up Moira's healing beam. Let's move on to the how to use. The most important thing with Moira is not wasting her healing or even any of her other abilities. You want to stay behind your team and make sure they group up so you can heal them all with your spray. If you're running like a dive comp, you can't really heal your team because they're all off on their own doing things, or they're diving targets and you really can't follow the tanks that are diving, or like a Genji that's diving. You want to get the most out of your healing, so have everyone group up in a death ball and you can heal them all for 80 health instead of just healing individual teammates and not getting the most out of your healing beam. Only poke out to the front line when you need to recharge your healing meter. The damage beam has medium range, so you don't need to be close to enemies, but you have to track them accurately. Moira's biotic orbs are very useful, but also can be easily wasted if they bounce out of the map, so you want to make sure to bounce them off walls that will make them stay within the map, or use them in corridors or rooms where they can't just bounce out into the sky and go off in the distance. The orbs also charge your ult very quickly, and you can use the healing orb on yourself or teammates when the healing beam needs to be recharged. The damage orb can take out enemies that try to escape into a small area, like a room or corridor, so you don't have to actually follow an enemy that's low on health. If you have a damage orb, just fire it at them and it'll get them. Moira's Fade ability makes her really mobile, but it also makes you invincible for 1 second, so don't use it until you have to. Fading into the enemy's backline is fine, as long as you don't die and are able to fade back to your team to heal them. I recommend players to spam her ult and not hold on to it for long because it charges so fast anyway. Prioritize healing with Coalescence because it's more effective than the damage, but you can do healing and damage at the same time if you position her correctly behind your teammates, but also pointing towards the enemies. It's also very effective at killing a support in the enemy's backline because they might think they're safe because of shields or barriers, but the ult goes through that. So if your team is healed up and they aren't taking that much damage, so you don't have to heal them, just focus on taking out like a Zenyatta or a Mercy in the enemy's backline that thinks it's safe. Moira is a very versatile hero with a lot of helpful actions for your team, so you should never be doing nothing. Keep your team healed up and do damage when you can. Her abilities can be wasted easily, so you want to practice each of them to use them correctly and carry your team to victory. Moira is a lot of fun to play for DPS or support mains, so try her out and see if you like her. I honestly think she might need some tweaking to balance her with the other supports because it's too easy to get gold healing and gold eliminations with her. I love using her because I can actually carry the team with her, but she might be a little overpowered because of that. It's just too easy for her to do a ton of damage and a ton of healing, but it's also way too easy to waste her abilities. So if they nerf her too hard, she might be completely useless. She could turn into another Doomfist. Right now she has changed the meta and comp is super fun again. Alright guys, so that's the end of this overview on Moira. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'm beginning to be a lot more active again on YouTube, so expect to see a lot more videos coming out, and if you have any suggestions on videos you would like to see, leave them down in the comments. I greatly appreciate it, and as always guys, I hope you all have a good day, and goodbye.